Hey everybody, and welcome to Indie Film Cafe's Doc That Rocks.
Docs That Rock!
Yay!
Rock.
I'm your old pal, the Moot Cow, and I'm joined by...
Jonathan A. Moody, your co-host.
Yay! Okay, so today, I thought it would be fun to check out a movie that I really liked from way back in the day. Not that far back, 2004.
Oh, 20 years ago.
20 years ago. And it is a movie called Dig. And it is a rockumentary, but a very different kind of rockumentary.
Than the one we saw before?
Right. This one explores the sort of love-hate relationship between two alternative bands, two of my favorite alternative bands from the late 90s. The Brian Jamestown Massacre and the Dandy Warhols, and how they sort of started off as friends, really good friends, and then the relationship went down frickin' hill, and how all of that sort of intermixed. And actually a lot of folks in the music biz and the film industry really enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed the film. And most rockumentaries are kind of about the bands, but like I said, it usually doesn't talk about this. It's really more about the relationships and what happens. So it's a very interesting film, and I've come to find out that this year they are re-releasing a 20th anniversary set where they've added an extra 40 minutes. So there you go. And it won a bunch of Sundance Awards. So,
all right.
Have you ever heard of it? All right. Do you know the Dandy Warhols?
I thought it was going to be an archaeology thing. I was
No. Have you ever heard of the Dandy Warhols or the?
I know the Dandy Warhols. Yeah. I don't know the other one.
The Brian Jonestown Massacre. Yeah, they weren't quite as commercially successful, and that's kind of one of the things they talk about in this. So it's very interesting. So we will see you on the flip side.
See you in a little bit.
Yeah.
Bye.
Docs. Hey everybody, welcome back. So, what did you think of Dig?
I dug it.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it? It's, like I said, it's not like a regular kind of rockumentary where you sort of, focus on one band and watch it from its beginning, see how it builds, then becomes really popular, and that's about it. It's not really about that. It's really more about these two bands with these two kind of different points of view and different philosophies, how they found each other and made great music, were friends, and then drifted apart and kind of became frenemies. You know?
I mean...
Yeah. For reasons.
I mean, but... a lot of that, there's a lot of reasons, different reasons for it.
Drugs.
Booze. But I know, but...
overall craziness.
Yeah, it just... And also... Probably a little bit of the record company
definitely
wanted, didn't want, it had some funny, interesting moments to the story of their careers together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the Brian Jonestown Massacre. I was wondering because I thought somebody would be named Brian Jones in the group, but there's not.
Well, no, that's the Brian Jones from the Beach Boys who died in the pool. That's what they named themselves after, famously.
Oh, you mean Brian Wilson?
Brian Jones, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so the idea is like Brian Wilson and
Jonestown
together.
Right, together.
And that's kind of funny that the one person thought, like, the cop asked if it was a cult or a...
Right. And they're like, no.
We're not sure. That girl was so cute. By the way, she's 49 now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, and so she was a cutie pie back then. She still is.
Yeah, I mean, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So there you go. But, it's amazing. They're both really good bands, especially the Brian Jonestown Massacre. If they had been just like they'd been more like the Dandies, they probably would not have been quite as musically gifted, maybe, but they'd still be together making music. It's just they were a train wreck.
Well, he was a train wreck.
Kind of all of them. I mean, they were all druggies and all doing crazy shit. But yeah, Anton was the worst of the worst. But mainly because, and you saw, I mean, he had such a broken childhood and a broken, genetics and just all kinds of things. And he's one of those people that literally cannot do anything other than be a musician. You couldn't see him in a job. There's no way. He'd never survive. No one would hire him.
Mm-hmm.
But you give him 80 different instruments and he can play and create songs like that, and they're all good. You know, it's like that one time where they pay enough to put together a song, and instead they record an entire album that they put out because they could do that.
Or he gets mad at the group of people who are talking because he's recording in his bedroom.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, I'm recording here. You know, and they're like, you're recording? Okay, sorry, we didn't know.
Yeah, and the Dandies are an excellent band too. They're still around. You know, they just put out their 12th album.
Nice.
I don't know if they're on tour. I know they were, as of March, they were, I think, in Europe, but I'm not really sure if they're going to be in the States. I hope they are. It's a shame. You know, they were huge in Europe, and it's just, like I said, at the time, you know, the music industry was geared more towards the boy band pop stuff and less about, you know.
Yeah, so like not early or mid '90s. That's when like Backstreet Boys.
Right after
NSYNC.
Kurt Cobain died. After he died, it kind of all went to shit, you know. And all of the bands that the companies bought up, they decided to drop, and it just broke a lot of bands, unfortunately.
It's interesting they mentioned like Oasis, and they just announced that they're going back on tour. You know, they're coming back, which I think is interesting.
And it's funny because, again, it mirrors that whole thing, too, because Blur and Oasis were like bands number 1 and number 2 at that time, and they famously would fight against each other and have like frenemy kinds of stuff going on. And
not to the extent that this
no,
band
not to that extent.
Not to the extent that Anton would show up at the concerts. First of all, he was not allowed.
Yeah, he was like on the list of don't let him in.
And then he would they were talking about him, and he was like in the other side going, hey.
It reminded me of the documentary movie where the director's like, gets kicked off, but instead of leaving, he comes back and he's dressed up in one of the nobody can tell.
Yeah, the Lost Souls
Lost
documentary.
Souls.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Well, in that sense, he hid himself. He was just under that one disguise or whatever. This time, Anton does not hide.
No.
He's going out there and he's giving all records out to people on the street saying, listen to my song that's making fun of their music. Yeah, you go.
Love him or hate him, you got to admit two things. A, he's an incredibly great musician, and B, he is going to be himself no matter what. He's 100% genuine and authentic, and you can either deal with that or you can't. A lot of people can't.
I'm surprised he's still alive, right?
He's still around. He's last I heard, he has been doing some work where he writes music for like TV and movies and stuff. As a matter of fact, if you ever saw the HBO show, oh God, what is it? The one with Nucky Thompson.
Who?
The one with it's like Down the Shore, the gangsters in the 30s.
Boardwalk Empire.
Boardwalk Empire. He made that theme. I don't know if you remember that theme song.
I never watched it.
It's a really
I know
interesting.
Of it, but...
It's a really interesting theme song, and that's his music.
Oh, interesting.
So he's found some success, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But as far as the band goes, I think the band has not been together.
The
in quite some
Brian
time.
Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah, I don't think that's together anymore. But the other members who were in that band, the original ones, have gone off to do other
bands and stuff,
and they're still around.
Like Matt Hollywood and a couple of the other guys.
But the Dandies are still the Dandies, and it's still the same crew as far as I can tell.
I remember I really laughed kind of hard when Matt and one of the other guys I guess they got stoned or drunk or whatever. The name was drunk or both. And they just wandered off. And they wanted to walk from Chicago.
They were in Chicago, and they got pissed off. Like, we're going home.
We're going back to Hollywood.
They're
walking. But then they're like thinking, what do we do? Do we just leave them in Chicago, or do we like look for them, or what? And then they just showed up, and they weren't happy because they weren't happy with the band. The band.
Well, I mean, you got the impression that they were. I mean, this happened constantly. They were fights all the time. There were people quitting all the time, and then they'd come back the next day. And what are they going to do? They sort of had this dysfunctional family, but it was all they had. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, eventually it got to the point where when Anton's serious drug use is really what provoked the final end. And I'm so glad he finally got off of that and cleaned himself up.
Well, he was doing heroin, and apparently, like, usually people do heroin to like chill themselves out and make themselves, I guess go away from this world and just whatever. But apparently, heroin made him like angry, and when heroin makes you angry, that's when you don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no point in doing something that's supposed to calm you down when it makes you angry.
Well, the problem with Anton is that he already has enough anger and enough internal angst and internal problems that
he doesn't need any drugs.
No, he doesn't. And he has the music to channel that out of him, but it's not enough. Right. He really, I'm hoping he's gotten some kind of professional help, because he needs that too. There's just so much
therapy and all that stuff, especially with his dysfunctional childhood and shit like that, and just process all of that stuff. Because, like, look, I mean, I had a great childhood. I can't complain, right? Like, I can't ever say I had a terrible childhood. I had the most amazing childhood. But there are things in my life, like, I'm really messed up. Like, there was just things in my life that I whatever, in my childhood, that I did that I very much regret, because I did not change these things back then, because I didn't know better, back then. You can't, right? Like, you look back at it, you're like, man, why the fuck was I like that? Or whatever. But I
didn't really have a choice sometimes.
Yeah, and I didn't, that was just who I was. And I didn't know that. And then, I grew up to be a different person than who I was when I was in, like, middle school or elementary school or whatever, even high school. I'm completely different than that now as an adult. But back then I didn't know that shit. I didn't know, like, that I was gonna be different, and whatever. So anyway, the point is, like, all that shit generally builds up and you become the person that you are, and you can be a different person. You can change sort of, your attitudes, your feelings, your whatever, and still be who you are. You just need help on that. You need somebody who's going to tell you and show you different ways to react or to feel.
Either that, or you develop on your own a channel to positively use that darkness or use that energy or use that stuff. I mean, that's where some of the best athletes come from. That's where some of the best artists come from. That's where some of the most successful people in general come from, because they're able to take that darkness, all that energy, all that angst, all that stuff, and channel it into something else and to make it useful. And the people who don't or who are unable to do that are usually the people who end up having to run away from life, and they
go into
drugs and alcohol and all the other stuff. And
I mean,
self-destructive.
I did some drugs, not really that much drugs, but I did alcohol, and alcohol was my big vice and everything like that. I didn't smoke cigarettes, thank God, because that's just another thing I wouldn't want to had to have quit. And and I do, like, caffeine or whatever. But, like, and I'm never gonna quit that, I don't think. It would take a lot for me to have to quit caffeine. But as far as as far as alcohol went, I get help for that. Like, I work on that every day of my life and everything, because I don't ever want to go back to that. Now, if Anton, hopefully he's in, like, some kind of program or recovery thing.
Said he got cleaned up, which is great.
Which, I mean, hopefully that means, because, like, sometimes people just get cleaned up and then they think they're fine, and then after a while they decide to go back to it. Something triggers something or whatever, and they're just like, fuck this, I'm gonna go do that. And hopefully he's an NA or something.
Well, the thing is, just like everybody else, you have to want it. You can't force anybody to change, no matter how bad they are, no matter how much they need it, they have to want it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So everybody has that moment where they have to make the decision. And,
yeah, either you quit or you continue going down that path. And if you continue going down that path, like, the people are talking about how it smelled like death in that place and stuff. And that scares me, man.
Tell me about it.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be in any place that I was like, that I could, think that it smelled like. I don't even know what death smells like. And I don't want to.
You don't want to.
I don't want to know. Like, that just sounds terrible.
It's unbelievable that the same group of people who put out these incredibly magnificent, creative albums are at the same time living in this squalor with no furniture in a squat, probably no electricity or running water in a place that smells like death. It's just a shame. It's terrible. It's like, God, I wish these people could be nicely well adjusted, and that's where the dandies are. The dandies are creative and successful folks too, but they can also do it while being responsible.
Well, you said, like, there was a line in it where they said, like, that those are the guys that, was it the Brian Jonestown massacre were the people that did the drugs?
Right.
Oh, dandy were the people who just wrote about the drugs.
They were like singing songs. These guys did the drugs that we sang about.
Yeah.
I mean, they would do like the light stuff, like the booze and pot, but they know not heroin or some of the other.
Yeah, that's right. They got busted in France for the pot, but like that was it.
They got a fine, and that was it.
In Georgia, the Brian Jonestown people got busted for heroin.
I'm surprised they didn't get
not heroin. It was
shot.
It was just pot, right?
Right.
And so yeah, they were lucky, but man, if they got heroin, they would have been in jail for a
they'd
while.
They'd still be there.
No. It's terrible.
And just the personalities of having to navigate going through all that, because just trying to be in a successful band all by itself is a very stressful situation. To have to put up with all of that too, I can't imagine. Can't imagine.
Interesting that the documentary followed both the bands.
Yes.
Right? So like that was the whole plan, I guess, was we're going to...
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Originally, when the director... I'm sorry, I got something in my eye. She was supposed to make a documentary, or she was going to make a documentary about what she thought was the 10 best new bands of that time. And these are the two who were so good. She's like, I'm not going to worry about the others. I've got an interesting story right here.
Do you know who the other 8 were?
No, I don't. I don't remember what was mentioned, but she was like, there's enough right now with these two great bands that I can just make this like it is. And it took 8 years. It took 8 years to put this together, and there's so much documentary footage
that's out there too, like
right.
That,
and that's why I said it's just amazing that there's this new version that's come out this year with 40 more minutes of extra footage.
I don't know if I'd want 40 more minutes.
There's a whole disc of extra stuff on there that we didn't even pop in there. There's a whole commentary section on folks from the Brian Jonestown Massacre. There's a whole other set of comments at a different period from the Dandy Warhol folks. Then they got a couple of other people involved. I think one of the managers who was there for a good while and then quit, because they also had managers that would come in and quit because they just couldn't put up with the shenanigans that were going on.
Yeah, I don't blame them. But the Dandy Warhol managers and stuff probably stuck around for a while, because like they were an easy band to handle. They were the more professional band. They came in. They recorded their stuff when they were supposed to, or whatever.
And yet, they still got fucked around by the record companies, because the record companies doesn't really care about them. They just want to make their money, and that's it.
Well, yeah, and they talk about that. They talk about how they just, the record companies only cared about money, and that's true. But, like, it's a business. I think they even said it in the movie. It's a business. It is not, it is not supposed to be like, oh, well, you guys are really great.
Well, the problem is the record company is supposed to facilitate and promote the band, to allow them to make the music so that the music can go out to the fans buy the music, and then both sides make money. But unfortunately, the record companies decide to get in there and say, well, we don't like that. We want you to do it like that. We don't want that. We want that. And they take over. They're not supposed to be in the creative part of it because they don't know how to make shit. If they knew how to make shit, they'd be musicians and artists, but they don't. So, they should just leave things alone. There are smaller record companies that still do that, but the big ones don't do that.
Well, the smaller companies sometimes are run by former,
right?
Like what is it? The guy who for Bad Religion, the singer for Bad Religion, he had he had his own record company, and he actually had The Offspring, as one of their first things, and they discovered The Offspring.
Most of the time, those kinds of groups will have to form their own record labels, just because, Jello Biafra and the Dead Kennedys made Alternative Tentacles, and then they would attract other like-minded bands because they didn't want to deal with it. That was one of the things with Anton. He didn't want to deal with the record companies, even though he wanted a contract and the ability to put out music. He also didn't want their shenanigans where they were changing shit on him, or altering albums, or saying who could be on and who couldn't be, which one's the single and which one's not the single. They should leave all the creative decisions to them. That's the same thing with the film industry. How many times did great directors walk away from Hollywood because those suits were getting involved where they should not have been and just screwing up films? And people are like, I've had it,
Well, I mean, but it all comes down to being, worried about what the public wants, because the public is the one who buys this stuff. So, and this goes to the movie industry first. When the movie industry gets involved, it's usually because they're afraid they don't want the people to lose interest in this project, or to not like it and not want to support the stuff. And
well, the problem is they don't understand that when it's good, generally speaking, it's going to find an audience. If it's popular, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, and it's only going to be popular for that moment. It's going to change. The audience is very fickle,
Right, but there are people, like you were saying, stuff like this was, at the time of pop bands and stuff, boy bands and stuff, and whatnot, and that was popular. And that wasn't just popular because some people really liked boy bands. All the girls that I grew up with in that time period, they loved NSYNC and
that's
and
what we
Boys.
shoved down their throats too. I mean, that's all you heard on the radio.
That's what they liked.
Yeah, but you have to understand, it's the tail wagging the dog.
Do you think 12-year-old girls are gonna like this stuff, or the Dead Kennedys, or
they didn't get the option? That's the problem. The record industry decided for them, this is what we're going to promote. This is it. We've decided this based on our
I don't know. The Dandy
research.
Warhol's music, from what I heard, sounded great.
That was great.
But I just don't see them there. I don't see them as a mainstream band. Even if the record companies didn't push them enough or whatever, I just don't.
They don't have to be the next Nirvana. All they have to do is make a profit, and they clearly would be able to do that.
But they did that because they have 12 albums, so they made enough money to continue to do that.
And it's just at the same time, in Europe, where they're free to just sort of be themselves, everybody loved them. They were selling out left and right. Because they were promoted over there, and they didn't have to worry about interference from the suits deciding, oh, well, we've decided that 15-year-old girls have all the disposable income, so everything we're going to do is geared around them. Same thing with TV. All of TV, suddenly, there's nothing for adults. It's all geared towards teenagers because they've decided that they're the ones with the disposable cash.
No, their parents are the ones with the disposable cash, and their parents pay for them to get the fuck out of the house, so they put them in the thing. And that's what the studios realized when Star Wars came out and Jaws was out, all these blockbuster hit movies, and all the parents were bringing their children so that the children could go off there and the parents could go for 2 hours, get away from the kids.
Yeah, but even those movies didn't have kids or teenagers in them, okay? It's different. It's all geared towards 13, 14, 15-year-old kids.
Well, now we've got the Stranger Things phenomenon and everything. So there's a lot of kids in most franchises.
Well, it's the mid '90s when all that started. Okay?
I guess sort of, but then what? You didn't like Armageddon, and that was a fucking adult movie. There's no kids in that movie. You know. I mean,
yeah, no, that one just happened to suck. That's all.
You can't. you can't. Then you can't get mad at it because at least there's adults in that movie.
Oh, I'm not mad at it because of the teenagers. I just thought it was crap.
Oh, well, teenagers went to see it or whatever. And,
oh, I'm sure.
You know.
Same thing with Titanic was a little bit better, but I went and saw it once and never had to see it again. But yeah, there were no teenagers in that either, but mostly teenagers saw that.
And back in the 90s, most kids were like the ones listening to the radio. As more kids were listening to the radio than adults were. You know, I
don't know.
I believe.
I'd have to see what the
statistics are.
On that.
Well, that's what I would believe.
There were more choices than there were previously in my generation in the 80s, that's for sure. But yeah, it was just, and the other thing too is, remember, alternative music was ignored by mainstream for a long time until pretty much Nirvana changed that situation.
I thought Nirvana was grunge.
They are grunge. They were grunge. Grunge was underground until the big Smells Like Teen Spirit opened up the music industry's eyes and said, holy shit, here's this whole other genre that we've been ignoring, and it's all these other bands and all this other stuff, so we better buy them up. And that's what they did in the mid-90s. They bought them all up. They farmed them for like 2 or 3 years. And then when Kurt Cobain died and another venue showed up to make money, they're like, well, that's it. And they just dumped all the bands, and a lot of them died because they needed the record label support at that point, or they signed contracts and such that they couldn't do anything else. And it was the death of a lot of alternative bands at that point, unfortunately. Just that, it just all kind of changed. And the modern alt pop era, which starts with the Dandy Warhols and the Brian Jonestown Massacre and like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and all that kind of started around then.
Just like movie industry, the music industry shifts. They have like shifts, but it's based on what they think that the public wants. So just like the bands with the boy bands and girl bands or whatever, that was a thing. Now the girl bands and boy bands are still there, but they're not what they push. They push,
here it's big elsewhere. Like the K-pop is all boy
K-pop
bands,
is different,
but it's huge. It's a massive money making industry over there.
But they took that from us. We had the boy bands first, and then but then again, but then you have the bands like Weezer, who are very much kind of, I hate to say it, even if they wouldn't admit to it, they were modeled off of like Beatles and those bands, Rolling Stones, those bands that were big hits at the time. I mean, actually, you can't. Yeah, you definitely can say that because they have the Green Album and all these things. They're obviously the Beatles, but they were their own sound.
And they weren't marketed like that. They were marketed on their own.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be inspired by what came before.
And then hopefully they rise above what came before and create their own music that sound. I don't know. I haven't heard enough of the Dandy Warhol, so I can't really say. The Brian Jonestown Massacre stuff I heard.
There's some really, really great music.
I'll have to listen to it, but I wasn't.
I would definitely. Both bands put out great stuff.
I just hated the fact that he just kept making fun of the band that was originally helping. It's like biting the hand that feeds you, man. They were helping them out as much as they could, and then he was like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna make a song about how much you guys suck."
But I'll never forget. The last time I really ever listened to commercial radio was the late '80s. Because there came a point where all they was playing was the same old goddamn boomer music over and over and over and over and over. And finally, the first time I ever heard REM on the radio was on a regular fucking rock and roll radio station. And the guy's like, "Oh, there's this new band called REM. I'm going to play this tune." And I'm like, REM's been around like a decade. They have 8 albums out.
Band.
Now you're saying they're new? What the fuck are you talking about? And that's when I knew these people have no goddamn clue about the alternative music industry. Now that's it. And I never listened to commercial radio again. Ever.
Yeah, well, that's funny. Well, I mean, that's just one idiot. I don't know if that's everybody.
But they're all owned by the same group. You know, they're all owned by the same management group that came and bought out all the record. I'm sorry, the radio stations. Yeah.
I don't know if it's still like that or not. But,
no, unfortunately. And it's all been bought out, you know, like Ticketmasters, they bought out all the different ticket things and they're running their crooked scheme, and it's all twisted now. It's all awful. It's not about music anymore. All it is about making money as much as they can and not caring about the actual artistic part of it. And it's a shame. But at the same time, technology has changed to the point where the digital industry has really allowed a lot of alternative and independent bands to come up and spring up and to be creative. So that's why I don't feel necessarily so bad about it, because there's a lot of great music and a lot of great independent film and a lot of great stuff that's out there. You just got to look for it. You can't be lazy and turn on the radio or turn on the TV and expect great shit. You got to go looking for it. But if you do, you're going to find a lot of good stuff out there.
Well, you know what they do now to market themselves, because, you know, obviously a lot of them don't have the ability to be marketed by a major record company or anything. But they go on TikTok or Instagram and they play their songs, you know, or whatever, and then they pay for some advertisement, and it gets out there to people that never heard of this band, and it fucking works on me. And I'll hear all these cool bands, and
it's
I'll be
great. And trust me, the record companies, they're not happy about this. They don't want to be cut out of the process, because they're the ones making their money, you know, doing all that, because they don't have any creative abilities.
But they can't stop that, because, like, that's just like trying to stop Anton from playing music whenever he fucking feels like it.
Well, you know, they try. I mean, they have pull. They pay people to go to Washington and to influence things. Like, you don't think that there's a reason why TikTok is being, you know, demonized? They don't want that out there. They don't want, you know, people to be able to hear free music. They want to control everything, you know? I mean, there's different reasons why TikTok is problematic, but
China,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
But, you know.
But I mean, I don't care if China sees my stuff. That I have nothing for them to see. So
they'd be pretty bored with my life.
It's just, you know, it's mainly for teenagers, so I have no use for it.
It's just like hearing that there was a balloon, you know, and I'm like, what are they going to be spying on from up above like that? You know?
Nothing that they can't already know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like it's just silly. I don't know why they did that. That was the...
Because people get afraid easily. That's why.
Do you think that was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Everybody cried and complained. There's
a
balloon! So what?
It's a China balloon, you know, or whatever, I think.
It's really slow and stupid and can't do anything.
Yeah.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
It'll float off somewhere else, and, you know. But the same thing, you know, it's just an interesting, you know, movie in the way that it shows the dynamics of the band, but it also shows you a really nice sort of time capsule of the music in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s, early 2000s, and shows you just kind of the stuff that happens in the background of the music industry. Like when they were doing videos, you noticed like the video that they were doing for the Dandy Warhols and how weird and ornate and all that shit. That they don't make those style of videos anymore.
I kind of didn't like it.
I know, I didn't like it either, trust me. I was not a fan of the videos at that time. But it was very, very over the top and ridiculous and stupid shit that had nothing to do with the song.
Well,
people dancing.
Some people like that. Some people like it when it doesn't have to do with the song, and I like that too when it doesn't have to do with the song. It just has to look good, and it just didn't look good to me.
It was too busy. It was like all this weird shit going on for no reason. You know?
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it either. But that was the style then. I mean, that was the big thing. That's what was selling on MTV. You know. So I'm glad things have changed since then. I'd love to make a music video. I have some very definite ideas about the sort of thing I'd like to do, but it would be very pared down and simple, because I don't want to be in the way. I don't want to be like one of those big, huge I'm a big video maker, and I want you to see what I can make. It's not about me. It's about the band and the music. You should not be in the way of that, in my opinion. I think it's just like being a good documentarian.
Well, no, because I made a music video with this girl Julin, and we did. I mean, she wanted me to come up with the idea, the concept.
Well, that's different, yeah.
And then when I came up with the concept, she said that was great. Let's do that. And then we came down and we shot it. So and as a director, I'm telling her where to go, what the things I want. And then she's suggesting things because it's her song. So I'm down with, that. If the artist says, I want this because this is part of my song and I want this part, to be blah, blah, blah. I'm like all for it. But some people didn't like it because I was literal with the song. Like, it was talking about how she was going to kill somebody, her boyfriend or whatever, for cheating on her. And I made it like that, and everything.
You didn't have 15 people dancing in the steps and balloons for people to stomp on and fountains and all kinds of goofy shit that nothing to do with it.
No, because that's dumb.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I don't do anything dumb. I try to make it. It's probably one of my favorite projects that I worked on because it did come out good. The editor made it look really fucking good, so I was really proud of that.
That was good.
Yeah, but aside from that, would I do another music video? Fuck yeah. I'm actually talking to somebody right now about doing one. But, is it, I have ideas too, but my ideas aren't simple, so we'll see if we can make it. It's harder. Mine includes CGI, but that's the thing. You have to, and you have to just make something.
And they didn't
cool.
really have.
That's not weird.
That. Yeah, and they didn't really have that access to that
right.
back then.
But even then, what would they have done? CGI birds or something?
Stuff.
Fucking whatever. Don't do that.
It's weird.
Don't make something Don't be like, we're artists. We have to be abstract. We have to be weird. No, dude, your songs are simple and fun. Make the movie.
Right. The
music
whole
video
point
simple.
of the video is to get people interested in the music.
Right.
Not the videographer, not the producer, not somebody else, the record label. It's supposed to be about the artist.
That's why I like Weezer, because they had a couple songs that the first one I ever watched was the Buddy Holly song, and they had it set at the Happy Days. So they had flashbacks of Happy Days, people dancing showing the Happy Days stuff and everything, and they're singing the song, and then the owl comes up to them and says, "How's the chicken?" It's like, "Not so good, Al." And he was like, "Not so good, Al." Yep, and walks away, and I'm like, dude, how awesome is that? If you're a Happy Days fan, that is cool, but that was a way to sort of do their song, which made sense for that, and still have a fun little story with it. And they had the Fonz in it too, so you showed up and left with two girls, man.
Well, there you go. So just watching this documentary spurred on a lot of interesting discussion about different stuff.
And all the bands that they kind of showed, they showed a bunch of bands that would be on tours with them and that they loved them.
Harry Dean Stanton was hanging out in the back. That was awesome.
I know, but that was because back in the day, he was in some movies that were I think in the 80s that were very controversial.
Yeah,
more.
He wasn't afraid to go and be controversial.
Yeah, so then he went on, and that's probably why he hangs out with bands like Dandy Warhols, because he's just why not? Let me just hang out with these guys or whatever, and they were cool with it, because that's punk rock for you, even popular people liked punk rock,
Oh yeah, and true artists kind of recognize each other and like to hang out with each other, and
I want to hang out with Gary Busey.
I want to hang out with Anton Newcomb. I would love it. I mean,
I don't know, man. I'd have to make sure he was clean.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I could hang out with him if he was having one of his manic episodes.
No, but I'd love to hang out with him because what he's going to do. He's going to pull out a guitar and start playing a song. He probably would make up right there,
He had his guitar and harmonica
Yeah.
on him.
He would probably make up a song right then and there, and it would be awesome. He'd be like, wow, that's really cool.
Mm.
That would be cool. Now, I wouldn't want to work for him. Hell the hell no.
Well, not when he was like crazy, but
I would not want to depend on him for anything, but that's different.
he can't. He's not even allowed. Well, he wasn't allowed to see his son.
No.
I wonder.
I don't know what's
It's
going on
been 20
now.
years, so
Yeah.
he's probably might have been his son by now.
I like to think now that he's 20 years older that it's much different for him and much.
Well, I think
better.
once he got clean, maybe.
I like to think so. I don't know. I haven't heard anything other than the Boardwalk Empire song from him in a long time, but the man definitely has a ton of talent, so I'm hoping that he still is able to utilize it somehow.
And Brian Jonestown Massacre is still around, or no?
No, I don't believe so. I may be wrong, but I don't believe so. I think he's kind of on his own, and then everybody's gone off to do their own individual bands. But the Dandy Warhols are still around, at least as of March of this year.
I don't know if Oasis has found anybody to open up for them.
It won't be Blur, that's for sure.
But it won't be, Brian Jonestown Massacre, sadly.
Yeah.
Many people probably don't even, because I've never heard of them. So, I think, they're not popular enough that I would have, that most people like me would have heard of them.
Oh yeah, no, they were definitely more of an alternative band. But like I said, back in the day, the CMJ, the College Music Journal, they used to put out every month. You would get a DVD or you'd get a CD loaded with new music, and that's how I discovered so many different bands. It was just a marvelous thing, and it's just I think it may exist online now, but I don't think they mail out CDs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of went away with with the digital revolution and stuff changing, and it's a shame. But yeah, that's how I found a lot of great music in the 90s.
So there you go.
So
I don't know. This documentary is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the idea that you said they were following 10 bands, and they're like, never mind, these two are it.
Yeah. Now, I will say that some members of both bands have criticized this film and said, it wasn't quite as bad as that. That the director sort of created some narrative stuff in order to get the movie rolling in a certain direction that really kind of wasn't there. That things were underlined more than they actually were. But it's still entertaining. It's still won a bunch of awards, and it's made enough fans that they decided to put out this 20th year anniversary issue. So I'd love to get my hands on it. But yeah,
was it a Blu-ray? Is it a Blu-ray or?
That was a DVD. So
right,
I'm sure the new one has got to be at least Blu-ray.
Yeah, get a Blu-ray of it.
Yeah, that would be
sure
cool.
It'll look great.
Mm-hmm.
Though I don't know if it needs one necessarily, because there's not really much there's not much scenery in it.
Let me grab the disc really quick.
There's not much scenery in the movie.
Well, yeah, some of the concert footage would be interesting to see in 4K or into Blu-ray, but yeah, Andy Timonier.
Let me see. What?
No, that.
What is that?
Upside down.
Upside down. Andy. What does that mean?
Timonder, or Timoner.
Timoner. What does that mean?
That's the name of the director.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can tell you, she's made a number of other things. She's done other documentaries, other shorts. She made one on Robert Mapplethorpe, the artist. She did another one. I forget what it was about. It was more of a corporation kind of movie, and I know she's won other Sundance awards. So
There you go.
she's definitely somebody who has done other works, and I'd be very interested to see some more of her work. But I'm definitely going to go find this new version of Dig. I think it would be very, really cool. So it was funny because there's a second rockumentary that I was going to do that's very, very different, that I'll save for another time. And I was like, which one do I do? Which one will be interesting enough? But I'm kind of glad I did this one. It was
good.
It was a very different one than I think you were expecting, right?
I mean, it's funny because when you created Docs That Rock, this was more, I guess, because it's rock, so a lot of the stuff's rock and roll. We've had 3, I think,
something like
3
that,
or 4. So we've had
I got a bunch more.
We had the ARG, you know.
Music War, yeah.
And then there's the what was the one that that had all the different bands playing and everything.
Yeah, the Decline of Western Civilization.
Yeah, Decline of Western Civilization. That ARG was the one that had all the bands, and then the other one was all the punk bands that Penelope Spheris did, and then this one, I guess, right?
Right, which is like mid '90s, a different era.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Like, I mean, it's a neat little thing, but I don't know. Probably I like Decline of Western Civilization a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because there were more bands and it wasn't just a focus
right.
on the two and stuff. And I think the focus on the two kind of makes me get a little bit tired after a while. I'm like, I don't know how much more I can take of this Anton dude. I'm like, I'm kind of.
What the hell's going to happen next with him?
I know, and then the Dandy Warhol stuff was sort of like they needed the other one because like. It sort of was the opposite of what was going on with the Dandies. So the Dandies were like their stuff was rising and they were doing really well. And it's when they kicked Anton to the curb that they started doing really well and everything.
And they kind of had to, just because he was such a train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
yeah, you couldn't be involved in their life anymore.
Mm-mm.
As we said, he wasn't even allowed in to the concerts because...
Well, plus he was getting really, really weirdly obsessed and bitter and was having all these strange things about, he would just like come out of the blue and just, start talking about how bad the Dandies were, or how they weren't as creative as him. And it's like,
yeah, but
why?
then Courtney kind of, I don't know, Courtney kind of like lit the fire, lit the fuse, because he just kept coming to Anton and hanging out with Anton and being cool with Anton, even though Anton's
friends.
I know, but like, were they really? Like, I feel
well, that's just it. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell with Anton.
Yeah, and then which one of the bands was playing shows with 10 people? Was that Dandy?
That was Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah, okay. So they were playing shows with like 10 people, and they were happy. They played for 10 hours too.
Yeah. And I love that one dude. I forget his name. All his job was to bang the tambourine. I'm like, man, I want to be in a band, and all I have to do is bang the tambourine. Shit, I could do that.
I have no coordination, so I wouldn't even be able to do that. And then there's that one thing at the end, toward the end, where he was going on the shows, and he was like, I think the only one left, pretty much, of the original band and stuff. There was like a couple other people, and he was like, my sister is gonna play for you guys, right?
Oh, that's when he kicked
and
the
then,
guy.
Yeah, and the guy said, fuck your band, your sister is great, or whatever. Keep your sister or whatever. And he was like, you fucking come over here and tell me that. And he kicked the guy in the head, and the cops arrested him for, assault. It was assault with a deadly weapon. And the deadly weapon was a guitar, I guess?
Well, it was his foot. They said, because he's got a boot on and that could injure you slightly. But that's the big, big difference between then and the era of Decline of Western Civilization. It was literally against the law to play punk rock music in a lot of places. I mean, cops would come in and just arrest you right then and there for that. But B, trust me, almost all of those things ended in a fight or a riot or something, but nobody got arrested unless the cops were there for other reasons, and then you would just fight the cops, and then they would, bust you and throw you in jail. And, versus then and probably now, you can't do anything like that without getting arrested. They don't put up with that shit anymore.
Yeah, assault is very taken in very seriously now, which it should be.
Even if they're throwing shit at you, you can't go up and...
Which it should be. Yeah. It should be treated that way because you could really get hurt. Somebody could really get... Like, that dude didn't get, like, completely hurt or whatever when he got kicked in the head because he was like...
But it sounded bad.
It sounded bad.
You're like, oh!
And then he goes... And then the guy was like, oh my God, I can't believe you actually kicked me in the head.
He was probably drunk and didn't even feel it.
I know.
But it sounded bad.
I didn't hear him say even a word. You just heard it, but you didn't hear him saying it. I don't know. It's crazy. It was a fun movie. It just would I watch it again, and especially with 40 more minutes? No, sorry, man. I can't. That dude. I know you want to meet him. I don't want to meet him. I'm sorry.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
Anton. You're
Another
done.
40 minutes would be awesome for me.
You're done. I don't want to ever see you again. If you're making music, awesome. Keep doing it. But I don't ever want to. You were just a train wreck so bad back then. I believe if you change, that's good, and people can accept you. But I just
on the other hand, you're happy to meet his girlfriend, or at least his ex-girlfriend.
I don't think that was his ex-girlfriend. I think that was just it just said recording artist.
Okay.
So I think she was just one of the recording artists. She's still recording stuff, so good for her.
That's good.
But yeah, no, I liked her, the blonde girl. She's a cutie. And she still is. I looked her up.
I always had a crush on Zia. She was so cute.
Zia was cute.
Yeah.
She's probably a little older now.
Oh,
right?
yeah, she has a kid now, and she might even have 2 kids.
And
married.
they showed some weddings at the end because it kind of showed how adult the Dandies.
Yeah, like normal they are.
Yeah, because they're a normal band now, like or whatever. They sort of always were.
Right.
They played music. They got a record deal. They you know what I mean? They did those stuff you're supposed to do.
Like you said, we're the band that kind of sings about that stuff, but we don't actually do that stuff.
Yeah, we don't
because
do that stuff.
we want to actually live.
Yeah. But
we don't want to be in a death house.
One that smells like it.
Right. Ugh.
Just sounds
They
terrible.
might be authentic, but so what? That's not the authenticity we want.
No.
Yeah, I mean, struggling artists, sure, yeah, but nobody wants to be one, you know. So
there you go.
So there you go. So I hope you guys get a chance if you find it someplace. I know you can at least get it on Amazon, but if it's out there, if you can't get the regular version, then probably go for the new version with all the extended stuff. I've actually never sat down and just listened to all the commentary. I might do that when I go home.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Sounds like something you'd be interested in.
Because I'm dying to hear what some of the other band members have to chime in with.
It reminds me of when we watched Warlords, and right after when I was like cleaning up this area and stuff, you turned on the commentary just because you wanted to hear what more stuff about how they made the movie or whatever.
More. Interesting
shit. So I would say if this is something like interests you and stuff, check and buy the Blu-ray when. I don't know if it's already out, but buy the Blu-ray because the Blu-ray probably would have, I don't know if it is a Blu-ray, but
if you happen to be fans of those bands, you're going to like it. So trust me. You may not love seeing sort of the world behind those bands, but there's enough of the music being played that I think you'll like it.
I think you would. I think anybody would be interested in that because it was interesting. Like
a lot of drama.
There was a lot more drama, but then there was stuff like them doing normal shit, and I was like, why am I seeing this? But the normal shit was there, but to show you that they had normal parts in their life. And then the crazy shit happened. Like, it wasn't just all crazy, of their life. They did stuff, but then fucking Anton couldn't even walk at one point, and he was just slipping and sliding and shit. And I was just like, oh, man, this dude... Just go away, Don't come back, No. I'm sorry, Anton, but if you are doing really well now, I love you.
Yeah, you were a train wreck, but you were incredibly gifted and music genius train wreck. Yeah. I just wish you didn't have the train wreck part.
Yeah, just like the guy from the Lost Souls thing. He was a train wreck when he was doing this stuff, and that's why he got fired, because he was a train wreck. So... but he's doing really big stuff. So, like, great things happen to people who just sort of kind of calm down and
keep going. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Don't give up.
And I'm glad that because the girl said when she smelled the death house, she said that she thought that was gonna be the last time she ever saw them, and that wasn't.
Yeah.
So
keep
they're
going.
still out there. So.
All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us. I hope you'll join us next month. I'm not sure exactly what we'll show you, but it will be
You gotta do a What the Fuck Friday coming up.
Yeah, we'll do that too.
Oh.
But we will find you another interesting documentary, another doc that rocks, and we will be back next time.
Bye.
Docs.